Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of our Digital Dialogue series. I'm here with Justin Olesinski, principal of the Eponymous Design Studio and all-round industry nice guy. Justin, how are you keeping, sir?
All good, thanks, Will. Very
Yeah.
good, and yourself?
Yeah, very well, thanks, Justin. Obviously, you're based in the Isle of Wight,
Yeah.
probably one of the world's most COVID-safe jurisdictions of all. So, how's life been treating you on the island during this pandemic?
Well, I think we've been really lucky. Um, we've not got many people around. Most of them are elderly, so they don't sort of. You can walk around in relative safety here, and the numbers were really low during COVID. So yeah, we've been really fortunate. You can walk outside and get some fresh air. There's some nice places to see. So yeah, no, we're very fortunate here. Enjoying it, yeah.
But in terms of COVID and the more sort of serious impacts it's had, how certainly for Olesinski, the studio, but the industry as a whole, how do you think COVID has affected the way we work as an industry and I guess the way we will work moving forward?
Um, well, I think we're really fortunate in that we can work remotely. Um, as designers, we're in front of our screens most of the time, and we've got paper. We draw on, but we're very fortunate that we can work remotely. And when the COVID pandemic started, we'd already set in place the technologies. We bought up all the webcams before they ran out of stock, and everyone moved into their homes. And we've managed. We're very fortunate in that it hasn't really affected us negatively. And in actual fact, it's surprisingly it's been a real positive. Because we're working from home, we work on Microsoft Teams now. There's a lot more VC, and because we know where people are and we can see if they're busy or something, or whether they're presenting, we can contact people very quickly. We can set up group meetings, and we're actually finding that it's a lot more efficient for us in terms of productivity. I think some of that's due to we live, like you say, we live on an island. We've got about half of our office who commute in every day. Some people commute in an hour. So in a week, that's 10 hours they're not commuting, and also there's all the tiredness associated with commuting and things. And I think we found that people can just start work. We've added like flexi time as well. So this work-life balance has really benefited both the company and those working from home. And additionally, which is something which you wouldn't have thought in a pandemic, where people are working at home and not really got much contact with other people, we've seen our sickness go down from sort of 180 days a year down to on a handful in the year, which I did some maths while I didn't have much to do, and I think it worked out to about a man year of of extra time. That's a real benefit. Obviously, people aren't being sick, but previously people wouldn't want to, if they had a cough or a cold or something a bit more serious, then they wouldn't come into work and they would sit at home. Whereas now, people can work in their pajamas. They've got a cold, but they can carry on working. We don't make them work, and it's up to them if they do. But I think, in that sickness side of things, it's better for everyone as well. Being on public transport, people have got the chance of catching other people's colds. And ironically, just before the pandemic, because our year on year, our sicknesses was going up, days off, I do an annual presentation, and I just said, if you do feel ill, stay at home. And it was really ironic, that's what we got told to do. But people try to be heroes, they come in,
Yeah.
sort of sit in the corner and sort of ignore them. But it very quickly went through the whole office, and instead of losing a couple of days sickness, you lose 2-3 weeks very easily. So I think there's some real benefits there in terms of people's health, and I think there's been a lot of talk about the mental health as well. And being online, we found that people actually, instead of picking up the phone or just walking around the office, and we always said, this is a great place because we've got all the naval architecture, design and structures all in one place and people can just walk around. People didn't. If you put a webcam up in the corner of the office and saw people, you'd be, if you did time lapse, you probably wouldn't see much movement. People do sit at their desk. There's no change there. But we're finding that using online conferences, people are a lot more concise. They structure those meetings a lot better. So you come out with a lot more than you previously did. It's not necessarily good for the younger people, the younger generations, where they've got to learn. But for people who've been more than 5 years in the office, it's definitely been a positive there. But universities are, they're teaching online, and they're finding without the distractions that the productivity is a lot better. So I think it's really changed. And as you can see, I'm back in the office just because our house is being redone. But I hope that people do work from home. Their work-life balance, they can finish work and they can go straight out and be with their friends and just enjoy life a bit more. And I do hope it stays like that. I think companies have got to be a bit more structured in when you've got new people coming in, how to train them up. You've got to do a lot more investment there. And I think we've got to invest a lot more in sort of the social aspects. Once we can all meet up again, use the office as a place to talk about any problems you've got, personal issues and things like that, and just get together, for a barbecue or an event. But I hope that working from home, stays with us. I really do. I think it's better for everyone.
But and do you think that in terms of your experiences working externally and with clients, etc., over this period, do you feel that that whole process that you've described has better optimized the way we work as an industry?
I do. We're predominantly with Princess, and for us to go and visit them for a 2-hour meeting would take a whole day, to travel down there. And because of that, we would go down maybe once every 2 weeks. Someone from the office would go down once every 2 weeks. Whereas now we just pick up the phone, we screen share, we get everyone in the same place at the same time. You schedule a meeting, and it would take an hour or the 2 hours. But you've got a real focus of the right people at the right time there. Whereas, before, it'd be you'd arrive at the yard and someone was distracted somewhere else. Whereas now where people are, that you can definitely make sure that those meetings are, you get out what you want from them. So I do think it's better in that respect. And also, previously when you couldn't see them, you pick up the phone, and I think it's like we're doing here. I think it's a lot more personable when you are in these meetings and you can see face to face. You can see how people are reacting, and all the technologies developed massively since the sort of just the Zoom kind of meetings we had previously.
So you touch on technology, which is a lovely segue, thank you, into the sort of main thrust of this conversation, because I know you're rather passionate about the application of new technologies to the design and build process.
Yeah.
How far do you think we are away as an industry from the full digitalization of the new build process?
I think you've got two sides of this. You've got the design side and you've got the production side. And over the years, you've got something called PLM, the product lifestyle management. And basically, you set these things in, and everyone sort of adds to this main sort of line. All the shareholders can go in there, and you can develop much quicker. So instead of being individuals, sporadically going into it, it's a lot more refined. Now, we're predominantly production boats, and the process has got to be super efficient. So in terms of composite boats, we've over the last 10 years, we've obviously used CAD. We use VR now to interact with people, to discuss stuff, which is really good. You get a feeling of scale, which you can't do when you're just sharing a normal screen. So basically, our designs, we create them in 3D, and they're sent pretty much raw data to the yard, and they've got 5-axis machines that mill out these 35-meter foam cores, and from that they can create the molds. So up to that point, it is pretty much all digitized already. Our models then, our 3D models can then be taken to create the structural drawings and the GA drawings. There's still the human interaction at the end. I know on the smaller boats they're getting to 3D produced boats. But, I think there's a long way to go until we do. That happens on the super yachts. But on our latest 95, the amount of digitization of everything all the way through is amazing. In addition, we used to tank test boats, whereas now it's all done on computational fluid dynamics. So we test the boats all on the computers, and we can make these boats super efficient without actually taking the time to build a model, then test it, then get the results through. It's done much quicker there as well. So the whole process is already a lot more digitized. I think in our business and how we relate to the yard is there's not much more you can do to digitize that. I'm not sure when you get to the sort of the metal boats where they are, but I know that people like Fedship use the same computer systems that we do. Team Center, where you can get people working on separate parts, but it's all into one main model, and all the the logistics of supplying all the parts. That all joins into that same thing. So it's pretty advanced already at the moment.
Okay. One thing that you've been a champion of for a while is the application of AI. How much of a role can artificial intelligence play in super yacht design moving forward?
I can honestly say I think it's a bigger step up in terms of the way boats are designed as it was when we went from paper to CAD. Okay. It's that monumental. It's we've been developing hull design using AI for about 8 years, but about 3 or 4 years, we presented at the GSF with you guys. About 3 years ago, we started investing heavily into AI. So before, what we could do is we could get a hull that went through all the different scenarios and the restrictions that we've got and weight and things, and it came up with the best shape of hull. Now what we're doing is we are integrating concept structures and concept layouts. So we're now using that on live projects. So this is our third project that we're using AI in parallel to the traditional way of developing a GA, for example. But what we're finding, obviously the recipe where all of this power comes from is getting better and better. But what we're finding is it's giving us more time. It's giving us more time to design something that will work. Previously, when you're doing a layout design, for example, you try lots and lots of different options, and 90% of them, even with experience, would end up in dead ends. Something wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So you'd have to go back, back stages. Whereas now what happens is the AI realizes which bits work, and also it will tell you if you just change one thing, you could get much more optimization there. So what it does is it also, by doing that, I was talking to the guys that run the AI, and they said, "Oh, we're a bit disappointed because instead of taking a day to do this work for the computers to work out, it takes us 2 days." And I said, "Well, that's a lot shorter than 6 weeks."
Yes, yeah.
And what we're hoping to do is get that down to a day. So we should be able, by the end of this year, we should be able to have a whole that's created using, with all our experience and knowledge, a whole that works, a structure that works, and a layout that will fit that and meet the customer requirements. We hope to do that in a day. Now,
That's incredible.
So it's incredibly shortened time span. You can use that in 2 ways. You can either say, okay, we'll cut down the time to market, the amount of time to develop the layout and the design, or what you can do, that's great if you've got a big resource. Now, we're a company of 28 people, so what we're doing though is we're redirecting that resource away from the things that take time but a bit mandrolic. We're using that time for the designers to spend more time styling and trying new different curvature and looks. So I think with AI you'll be able to choose which way you want to work it, or like a blend of both of it. But it's really, really amazing what we're already capable of, and I'm surprised at how good it is already.
God, it sounds like it has the power to be transformative. You touched, Justin, on the concept of optimization.
Yeah.
I've just got a couple of questions as a sort of in defense of design, let's say.
Right.
Some sort of I guess accusations from the other side of the fence, and against potentially some trends that have been identified within design. I think one of them that has cropped up a number of times within these conversations previously is whether operational efficiency, optimization, and functionality, the actual usage of the boat, has over time been superseded by sort of design quirks and aesthetics. Do you think that's fair, or perhaps a misrepresentation?
In our personal experience, I think that you still got the fundamentals of what boat's got to do. It's still got to be able to travel in the seas and be safe. You've got ergonomic considerations. It's structurally got to be strong enough, and you've also got the crew and the client's needs. So if you don't meet those, they're basic things.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's happening is that we've got more options, we've got more freedom, and we've got a bit more time. There's a bit more investment in trying things that are different. Now, when you try something that's very different to what you're usually doing, it takes longer. You're into new territory, and it takes longer. But I think that it's a good thing to be able to try these things. Quite often, the boats will be mocked up in terms of layouts and things. So you'll get some things, we've all gone to a hotel and something doesn't work, you wash your hands and it sprays all over you, but it looks great or whatever.
Yeah.
There are things like that, which I agree with. They do need to be sort of tested first. And if you're going for something very new, you've really got to ensure that it does work as good as before. But I think that if it doesn't work functionally, this form follows function argument, then the client's not going to go back there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's in every designer's and yard's interest and the client's interest to make sure you've got those fundamental things at work before you start to try, extreme design.
Well, it's interesting you should mention the word extreme. Looking at the conceptual stage, if we take either end of the spectrum, on the one hand, do you feel those sort of zany concepts that get picked up by the Mail Online and other mainstream media, do you think they actually serve to damage our credibility as an industry? And then at the other end of the spectrum, do you feel that there's potentially a trend for some concepts being somewhat formulaic?
I love those concepts. I love
the crazy ones.
The crazy ones. I think if we didn't have them, I think the industry would be a pretty boring place. It gives new designers, maybe those young designers out of university who haven't got necessarily the experience and also all the overhead thoughts of we can't do this because of this and this, that, and the other. They've got sort of a free hand, and I think that they're good because what it also does is it stimulates ideas, not necessarily the form of it, but it stimulates ideas, and things are possible, but they just require a bit more work. Now, most designs are somewhere between possible and impossible to build. Most concepts are. Yeah. They haven't had the time to make them real, and what happens is you end up with somewhere in between, and an extreme concept will get watered down, just to the physical restrictions you've got there. But I think that they're really good. When you say sort of formulaic, when I look in my youth, I used to open the magazines up or look online and just go, oh, goodness, look at the size of this plate. It's amazing, it's really beautiful. But I think over 10 years, once you get over the size of the vessels, the yachts, and you start to look at, well, are they really pushing the boundaries here? Is the industry really moving that quickly? And I think the fact that we don't look at, we look at the news of the latest offerings, but the fact that we look at things like the automotive industry, which is changing so fast, it's got it's got a lot more investment in what people really want, and it's, if you look at the concept cars, for example, it really stimulates people's excitement. Like sometimes you see a concept car and you go, wow, I just love that, and the actual car that comes out isn't quite as good, but it's sown the seed. I think when you see these wacky ideas, they might not end up in your design, but it's sort of gone into the grey matter, and it is inspiring as well. And I think you need that inspiration to keep the industry moving forward.
Okay. One thing I want to pose to you, it's a question that I've rolled out a number of times, if I'm honest, but it's one of my favourites to get a real spectrum of answers on. do you think there's the need to distinguish between true quality and superficial finish? And based on that subject, do you feel we maybe need to change our mindset somewhat to provide a more utilitarian product for the next generation of clients?
So I think the quality and finish. I don't think you need to sort of quantify it in a certain way. Distinguish it. I think any product, be it a car, a watch, a phone, bike. Most clients go for a product that they've seen and they like what they see. So they say this product has got this quality, it's got this level of finish. And if it's something, in terms of like a super yacht, and they've got examples of what's happened before, then they will go for the one that suits their budget, but also the one that really appeals to them. Now, if the yard doesn't deliver on that, then the yard's going to know pretty quickly. But I think it's all about the managing expectation of and understanding what that client wants. So if you've got something that's allegedly very high quality and finish, everyone says it. Everyone says we've got the highest level and we've got the
yes, yeah.
They will
Yeah.
say it.
Definitely.
We're the best, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think when once you really get to look in depth, then you can understand exactly what you're getting into. So I don't know if we actually need to make it more functional or because I think that's already there, and I think people would judge it themselves, and there's so many different factors in there that it's quite difficult to quantify.
Okay, so another thing that's probably rather difficult to quantify, but I know is a passionate topic of yours. When do you think we're finally going to see that long-awaited transition from diesel to hybrid, or even eventually hydrogen?
I hope it's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah,
I really do.
Maybe a bit optimistic.
I know, with our boats, we already offer that hybrid option. So you've got diesel electric, for the drives, and you can either run one or the other one. There's the other option where you can have a bank of just batteries, which isn't involved in the drivetrain, but you can have overnight. You can have all your electrics, your aircon, your lights, the gyro, all running off the battery. So you haven't got the sound of the generators. So that's already there. I think, UK, it is quite worrying that, we've got, I think it was in the news only last week, that UK said it's going to reduce its emissions by 78%. Instead of 2050, it's gone forward, 15 years. So we've only got 15, 14 years until that's got to happen. And how it happens, I think, is going to be down to our ability to take on technologies that have been used elsewhere. So I think the big one here, the electric, the hybrid thing, and then the electric thing doesn't really work fully for the size of boats, that we're talking about. The power drain of, we need long distance. We basically use a lot of power. But the idea of pouring diesel, hours and hours into tanks, and is just going to fall off a cliff. I think that one day everyone's going to be happy with it. It's going to be like CFCs. One day everyone's happy with it, and then when the EU with the Euro 7 emissions and things, that's 2025 when the cars change there, and in the UK it's going to be 2030. People are going to be driving around in electric cars, and the idea of like pouring fuel into a boat is just going to be insane. Now, let's say worst case scenario, based in the UK, is 2030. So in production, we've got 5 years of production. So we've got to design for a boat that will last 5 years. So that takes you back to 2025. Then we've got about 2 years of design development before it actually gets into production. So that's, 2023. So we've only got 2 years to get ourselves sorted. Now, I've got I read yesterday that Bosch, my brother-in-law actually works for Bosch, and they're heavily involved in the hydrogen investment. So they've just put £1 billion investment into hydrogen for trucks. The trucks have got the same sort of thing as us, which is they need high power for long duration, and all the safety aspects. Everyone's fine with that, and it's definitely the way to go. But it's whether or not we can grab that the pool of and the ability pool of technical know-how. There's some very smart people out there, developing these systems. Yeah. It's how we can take it from that trucking industry, which is massive compared to our, very niche market we've got here. So, I really hope that we can work with these bigger companies in other industries to get ourselves up to speed. Otherwise, we're going to end up like steam engines. People are just going to go, do you know what? I just don't want that. And the regulations will tell us anyway. So the quicker we get involved in this, and I think one of the most important things here is because we're a niche industry. You see presentations from different yards of how they're using hydrogen. Talking about nuclear.
Yes, yeah.
And everyone's doing it individually. We've traditionally been a very cottage industry. Yeah. But I think there's a real importance, especially in this, because I'm petrified about what's going to happen if we don't get our act together. And I think there's a real importance where we can all pull together to all this information about different sources of energy. Different ways we can make boats more efficient. How we use that, how a yard uses that, makes it their IP and their selling point. But I think there's a real need because it's so complex and the investment you need is so massive that we can't do it individually.
Okay, so we wrap up all of these discussions by posing the question, what is your outlook for the future? Usually it's unerringly positive, but you've used the words petrified and similar. So I guess, what is your outlook for the future? Are you a harbinger of doom, or?
Oh, well, I do worry. I'm a worrier. I think the job of a managing director in any company is always to look far ahead, and something like the pandemic, just arriving and, from complete blind spot, has changed a lot of things, like we said earlier. I think this is something that we can do something about. So it's a worry, but I think we can do something about it. And either we're forced into it or we're going to move ahead. I think the other main thing here is time to market. So my 8-year-old, if you say, oh, that toy is going to arrive next week, he just won't accept it. He says, well, hold on, can't we go on Amazon? Can't we get it tomorrow? Or actually we can get it same day. Now, I can't imagine being, if he does very well, which I hope he does.
Yeah.
But if he is in the fortunate position of one day being able to buy a motor yacht or a super yacht, I would not want to be in that meeting room when someone tells him, yeah, you've got to wait 3 years for this boat. It's just not a situation I like to see. So I think the use of AI and the integration of all the technologies, like we said before, the VR, the integration of different systems to give the client an understanding of what they're in for, how they can change, what they can change, the communication, the transparency. I think that's, if we can bring the timescales down, that's going to be a major thing for the future. What else is there? I did make a note of this, actually. Oh yeah, the other thing is, I think the difference between ownership and experience.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
you know, it's happening with the cars. I came down to work today. Instead of bringing my car, I used my phone. I picked up one of these electric scooters, tapped my phone on there, came down, and I use it to get back home as well. And you can drop it off. Someone else sorts out the batteries. And I think that children today, when they get older, they just want the experience. Now there's loads of, you know, I think the way that the industry is changing, and there's a seismic change. Instead of sort of showing off about the type of boat you've got, it's more about what you can do with that boat. You know, when we talk about our phones, we don't really care how much memory it's got, as long as you know we can still take photographs on it. And it's what it does, what it does for us. And you know, there's loads more sports coming on. You've got, you know, paddle boarding, which has been around for a while, but foiling boards, and you know, these surfboards that have got electric motors on them, and you know, there's so much more. The lifestyle of people is changing from just going into the med and having a glass of wine and eating. You know, there's still going to be people that want to do that, but I think people want to be more active. And you can see with, I think you've done previous reports and discussions where people are a lot younger, so they are more active. So hopefully we can design the yachts to have this well-being sort of direction, which is like an interesting evolution of boats, really. So on that side of things, I think that will push the designs, how they look, and what we do with them, instead of sort of just doing the same thing. So I think that side is very positive.
Okay, so actually, I mean, it's probably a case of, yes, there are challenges and obstacles ahead, but that actually are also commercial opportunities and opportunities to innovate and improve our situation.
Yeah, and also what you can get out of that product. So I think you know, second homes, you know, can often be seen as a tie, and I know a lot of owners, you know, if they don't use their boat, they think, you know, why have I got that? Now, if the boat can offer them more than just standard sort of place to sleep and maybe view a couple of places, if you've got this shared ownership or charter, which I think is just going to go through the roof, you can be out in the med, experience one thing, and then the next week you can be in Iceland, you know, looking at different things. So I think the variety that's going to be available, and I think the charter prices might drop down a bit, you know, when there's more boats in the charter market available, could really benefit and expand our client base as well.
Okay, all right. Well, Justin, thanks so much for your time. It's always an absolute pleasure catching up. It's been too long, to be honest. You're an absolute pro, because I think my video dropped out towards the end of that, and I don't know whether you can see me, but I've lost.
I thought you fell asleep there, Will.
Yeah, exactly. No, so you're an absolute pro. You didn't skip a beat. I really appreciate your time, and thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Will, for inviting me.
Cheers, Justin.
Pleasure.
All right, bye-bye.
Cheerio. Bye.